Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this individual executive member decision. My name's Callum Wernham. I'm a Democratic and Electoral Services Specialist. Making the decision today is Councillor Lindsay Ferris, who is the executive member for planning and the local plan. And officer side of things, we have Ian Jordan, who's one of our business support managers, and we also have Liam Olive here, who's also in Democratic Services. And with that, I'll hand over to Ian just to walk us through the recommendation and report, please.
Thank you, Callum. So we're here today to seek the modification of our local validation list. The main driver for this is paragraph 44 of the MPPF, which requires us to review our local validation list at least every 2 years. That time has now come. The majority of our changes that we've proposed are modest. They have resulted out of some changes in legislation, changes in standing advice from our statutory consultees, and also us amending the list itself so that it can be better accessed using software reader systems. So we've removed a number of table-based information. So the layout itself and the content has remained largely unchanged, but becomes much easier to read. There've been basically 11 changes. We've outlined each and every one of those within the report itself at page 5 and page 6. I don't know if you want me to go through each and every one of those, or whether you have any questions relating to any of the changes specifically.
Thank you, Ian. And there are a couple I will just to raise so that the public who's listening can indicate those changes. We've got what I call, to explain, we've got deleted class O and replaced with class MA. Could you explain what those actually mean?
Okay, there was part of the permitted development requirements, so that's part of the legislation upon which we operate, allow for certain developments to be carried out without planning consent. They're called prior notifications. Over the last 2 years, the government has removed and reintroduced others. The wording has been changed, and in this case there was a sunset clause within the general permitted development order, which meant class O automatically expired on the 31st of July. So there was no requirement for that to exist any longer, but they then reintroduced a new class, and this relates to the changes of business premises without the requirement for permission. So that simply reinstates the element which has been introduced as a result of the expiration.
Thank you, Ian. I think most of the others, we've got changes to flood risk assessment, biodiversity net gain, viability appraisals, and also that there will now be premise that it'll be electronic documentation, although paper copies can be made available. And I think those seem to be the most one, and I have no issues with it. Most of the changes seem to be quite modest, and they line in up with the changes to legislation and policy that have happened. So I'm quite happy to sign this.
Okay. I don't know if you wanted to just briefly go through. We obviously had the single comment from one of our local agents. We've addressed, there were a number of minor comments which were made. We've addressed each and every one of those, and I've obviously put in our response. It didn't result in us actually changing anything, because in some cases the suggestions that were made were not actually relevant to the document we're talking about. And most of the others, it was felt that the wording or the approach was proportionate and reasonable for us. We've obviously got to make always that balance between what's reasonable for us to request and fulfilling our statutory duties, and we feel that we've struck that balance within this document.
That was the public consultation that we had from July and closed earlier this month.
It did, that's correct. Yeah. So again, I don't intend to go through every one of those, but obviously if you have questions about any of those, then I can respond to those.
I think it might be worth raising the issue of the pre-application charging fee levels.
So one of the areas which was covered within the response were that the potential for the pre-application charging levels to act as a disincentive. Now, we've done benchmarking within our local group, within Berkshire, and more widely as well. Whilst we are nearer the top in charging, we're not the highest. And I think given the amount of effort and the very comprehensive response that you can get from your pre-application applications, we think that the charging actually represents good value and make sure that we absolutely cover the council's costs. There's no reason the public purse should be supporting that from private individuals. This is advice given outside of our legislative requirements.
Yeah, I have no other points or questions.
Thank you both. Ian, just quickly, just to confirm on page 9, the consultation responses from the monitoring officer, director of resource and assets, and the leader, that we've not received any other representations other than that one that you've just mentioned.
That is the only one. We didn't get any from either for any of those that you've mentioned.
Thank you very much. So with that, if we move to the recommendation, I'll just read it out quickly for anyone following online. That recommendation is set out on agenda page 6, and it is that the executive member for planning and the local plan approve the modifications to the existing local validation list as outlined above. And when it refers to above, it refers to those the table which Ian has just gone through. You're happy to make that decision, Lindsay?
I am.
Fantastic. We just sign the decision sheet.
Thank you.
So subject to the standard 5-day cooling period, which will end a week today. So from next Thursday, this decision can be made final, and therefore I will now close the meeting. Thank you very much.